right, good people, we are live. Hello, hello, hello. Well, we have, today we are talking about yoga and you, and that's only because I couldn't come up with a more amazing title. I was going to say yoga, it's yoga, y'all, but my wife said, John, everybody's not from the South, so, but that was literally going to be the title. It's yoga, y'all. But obviously, yoga is about mindfulness, and I know, and I'm going to have David Wilson here is with us today, and Dominique Mann is here with us today, and they're going to educate myself and a whole lot of other brothers and those listening about yoga. Obviously, I know it pulls in elements of, not only the mental health, but physical health and spiritual health. And one of the things about Black Men's Health, we touch on all of those, including financial health and, social health and things of that nature. So yoga is an amazing way as we talk about creating more balance for men of color and specifically Black men through health. So with that, Dominique, why don't we start with you? Ladies first. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I don't do the long intros. You do the long intros. So tell us a little about yourself. We'll do the same thing with David, and then we'll jump on in.
Yes, well, first, thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored to be here today. So my name is Dominique Mann. I am a social worker and yoga teacher. I'm born and raised in Maryland. I'm here now. This is my home. And I have just always really been, ever since I did yoga back in college in 2000, I think, like 2009, that's when I first started. And I just loved it ever since then. And I've always known or felt like my own benefits with it, and I knew that I've always wanted to share that benefit with other people. I've always been an enthusiast of yoga, and as a social worker and therapist, I also oftentimes use yoga and mindfulness practices in my practice with my clients, and so that's something that I'm really passionate about. I know that it has so many benefits, and so I'm really happy to share that with you all today as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you. David, tell us who you are, sir.
Thank you so much, John, for having me, and happy to share the panel with Dominique as well. David Wilson, born in Chicago, Illinois. Went to school at Florida A&M University down there in Tallahassee. And I've been practicing yoga over, I would say, 2005 is when I was actually introduced to it. And I'll tell you a quick story. I've been in the corporate sector over 20 years. And back in 2005, it had probably been about 7 or 8 years I've been working and going in for my annual checkup. And, probably about 25 pounds heavier. Felt like I was a muscular, in shape guy. But what I realized at that point, based on speaking with my doctor is, I was doing a lot of things wrong. I was eating the wrong foods consistently. I was exercising, but not doing the right types of exercises for my age, which at that time was 33, and I had a 2-year-old son. So, at that time it was, you're kind of on this path, with, borderline risky, high blood pressure, borderline and risky high cholesterol, right? All of those things impact you early and they just carry on. So working with my doctor and others, just figured out a plan to run more, get more cardio, but yoga became a part of that regimen as well. And a big piece of it is, again, 2-year-old son, feeling like I'm at the, a great point in my career and wanted to make sure that was continuing to be consistent. So made the change then. I actually started to run more than I did yoga. Ended up running, 3 marathons and, just multiple of races throughout a 3-4 year period. But then just slowly inch back into yoga because I felt like I was getting more of a comprehensive workout in that space than just running, multiple miles. So that led to me going through teacher training and getting certified to teach 10 years ago, back in 2010. So, excited about where I am on this journey, and it's still a journey and it's still a process, and happy to share my learnings with you all today.
Amen. So thank you both, and thank you both for your time and attention and being here to share. in both of your bios, which the world can find online, and we'll have it all in our social components, both of you speak about a certain level of training. I think that number, that magic number, is like 200 hours or something of that nature. Talk to me a little bit about that. And then, David, I'm going to tell you a story, which I'm sure that you and Dominique are going to find hilarious, about my yoga journey, which is minimal. But tell me a little bit about that magic number of 200 hours and what that means, Dominique.
Yeah, so the 200 hour is like the first level of teacher training that you generally take. There's different levels. You can do 200 hour, you could do 300 hour, 500 hour plus. But the 200 hour is like the first one to be to become like a registered yoga teacher with the Yoga Alliance. And you don't have to necessarily register with them, but that's kind of where that kind of standard is. For everyone. And then, so that's what I have, a 200-hour yoga teacher training. And you can always, expand upon that, do different trainings. I actually just finished a 100-hour rocket yoga training, which is another type of training, another type of yoga. There's lots of different types. So you can also get other trainings in like continued education units, like in prenatal yoga and kinetic yoga and Bikram and lots of different types and things like that. But 200 hours is usually like the first mark where you can really like begin teaching and, stuff like that under the Registered Yoga Alliance.
Yeah, and just to add on to Dominique's example and good depiction of the 200 hours, I'd say I think of it like degrees. So the 200 hours is really the foundation. It's where you start to learn anatomy. It's where you understand all the systems in your body and how they make you. It's where you learn how your body starts to heal itself naturally and why it's healing it's naturally. It's where you learn about breath and breath techniques and why that's important. So think about that as a bachelor's degree, right? That 200 hours. And then if you want to get your master's, you might do 500 hours. Although I would state that you could still get 500 hours without having to get that certification. I actually think you do that over time, albeit informally. And then I think if you think about a doctorate, it's when you're able to start to teach students to be teachers. And I think that's when you get to a certain level where you can actually take your training and say, I'm going to pull a bunch of students together who want to get certified in 200 hours, and I'm going to help them get certified. So those are kind of the degrees that I think of. But 200 hours is the basics, but you actually need that. You can't skip that at all. It is so fundamental to you. I think of the training as being on, they call it Yoga Planet, right? Because they kind of pull you away from everything, and they really integrate and embed kind of yogic philosophy and spirituality into everything that you're doing. And they put you in a community who's trying to do the exact same thing. Everybody's on a different journey in a different place. But that 200-hour experience is really important to help you really set that foundation for other things to come.
Yeah.
So, and I want you, I'm going to tell you about my little journey, and I want you to definitely, another thing about both of you all specifically, you have certain, I guess, disciplines, if I'm saying it correctly, of yoga. And I want to hear a little bit about those different things and what they mean and why you chose those. And also, I want to hear, and David, I'm going to talk specifically to you. It's interesting, you said age of 33, you have a 2-year-old. So my journey into yoga, the first time I probably ever did it, I'm sure I had on slacks. I was at Leon County working in communications. We had a wellness coordinator. She invited us, or, the whole county family. I definitely wanted to take an opportunity, if at a minimum, just to support her efforts and making sure that she was aware that we heard her and, want to be a part of it. And I told her straight up going in, hey, if it gets quiet in here, I'm going to sleep. Right. I mean, I have some little men at the time now. Right. I got 11. I mean, I have a 13-year-old, 11-year-old, and a 5-year-old. So at that point, at least the 11-year-old and the 13-year-old and 11-year-old were little guys. And straight up, right, David? I mean, if it got quiet, I was going to sleep. So that's a challenge in itself. The second time I went back, I was invited back, which I was surprised that I was invited back. I had on jeans and socks, I believe. But it was in a work environment, but it was nice. It was definitely different. And I like the fact of just trying to or attempting to center yourself and block out the world and things of that nature, which is terrible to do in a communications role when you have your phone close and, work socks on and things of that nature. Not an ideal situation. I think the next time I did, I was able to help create a scenario at an advertising agency, and we did it like in the courtyard, outside, sun on your skin. So it was a wonderful environment. And then the last time I did it, the fourth time I did it, I actually was at a client's retreat, and a woman who was probably in her upper 70s or lower 80s. I think she, and excuse me, Dominique, if I'm saying this is wrong, I think she referenced herself as a yogini, if I'm saying that correctly. And it was on the beach. So not only did we wake up early and had the water crashing and that being a soundtrack, which is already, just so peaceful and settles me and my spirit, but this woman is out here just, just doing some amazing things. And it was really a good experience. And I remember saying specifically for Black Men's Health, I'm going to explore this, among other things, right? Running, swimming, whatever it is, any way that a man can stay balanced in all of these aspects of health. But I don't care who they are, how old they are, what they look like. If they can bring something that's of value and create a more balance for men of color, specifically Black men, I'm interested in that. So, with all that said, tell us a little bit about your journey specifically in those different disciplines. I'm not aware of all of them. I've heard of some of them, but I want to hear more about that. Go ahead, Dominic.
Okay. So, and what do you mean by different disciplines? Like the different types of yoga, the different aspects of it and everything?
Yeah, I don't even want to jack it up. I mean, I know I've seen like hot yoga and some other names that I don't even want to try to pronounce. So that's what I'm talking about. School us.
Yeah, so there's lots of different kinds. So the ones that I'm trained in is more of a vinyasa flow. So it's more so of connecting with your breath first, and then connecting your breath with your movement. So when I'm inhaling, I'm doing a certain pose. When I'm exhaling, I'm doing a certain movement with that. And I'm really letting my breath guide my practice. And so that's what I'm like necessarily trained in and teaching. That's like my focus. But also there's hot yoga, there's Bikram yoga where you do a specific sequence in a heated room. There's so many different kinds, but I think the most important aspects of yoga that I didn't know until I did yoga teacher training was that there's 8 limbs of yoga. And within those 8 limbs of yoga, asana is one, and asana is the physical practice of yoga. So that's like, vinyasa flow or Bikram, things like that. Just that physical yoga, doing the poses and things like that people see. That's only one limb out of 8 in terms of yoga. So you don't even have to be able to move in order to do yoga. Yoga is also incorporated in breath, which is pranayama, and sense deprivation, like pratyahara, and there's different aspects like yamas and niyamas, which is kind of almost like the 10 commandments, of like, things that you live by, and like nonviolence and was like saucha, and truthfulness, things like that. So it's really yoga is so much more than the physical practice. And I think that's what I really want people to know and realize, because you could just be sitting down breathing and you're doing yoga, just focusing in on your breath. So that's where I take a lot of my practice from breath, number one, especially like when I'm working with my clients. That's the easiest thing that you can do because we do it every day. And a lot of times we don't even realize it. And sometimes our breath can stress us out. It can lead to stress in our bodies. We're doing chest breathing. When we're running, a lot of times we're, breathing from our chest and not from like our bellies, and really getting all the air into our lungs like we can, like when we're sleeping like a baby. So just doing that breath work and stuff is something that's very important to myself. And that's how I realized That one, why I like vinyasa flow so much, because I'm really using that breath to move me, and that's what really calms my body and brings me peace in my mind and my body. So that's what really like drives me as a practitioner myself. So yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was very educational.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And just to kind of dovetail off of that, I am trained in Vinyasa flow, which Dominique alluded to, is breath with movement, and also, excuse me, and Hatha. And Hatha is Sanskrit, literally meaning kind of sun and moon. So you talk about masculinity and femininity, and kind of blending those two together in more of a slower pace type of practice. In addition to that, Yin Yoga, which really focuses on holding postures for a period of time in order to create some kind of peace and serenity, but also to compress areas of your body. So when you actually release that posture, there is a more, I would say, consistent blood flow. So when I think about Vinyasa and Hatha, it is more of a full body physical movements. When you think about Yin, you're working from your navel on down, and in terms of stretching, your hips store lots of pressure, trauma. So we do primarily focus on those areas to make sure that we're releasing tension in that area. And tension is just a fancy way of saying there's no blood flowing there. So, you're kind of caught up. And that's really what the aim is. And then lastly, trained in meditation. So as Dominique mentioned, yoga is all about breathing. So you can sit still and still be doing yoga, and meditation is an aspect of that. The final thing I'd say is, when you think about some of the postures, because there are some lots of myths and stories about how postures came to be, but think about this spiritual art and science called yoga 5,000 years ago in India under the hot sun. People were kind of contorting their bodies into things that they saw in nature. So you see a tree, and therefore you have tree pose, right? You see ego or Garudasana, you see an ego pose, so you contort yourself into an ego, and all of these postures named after aspects of nature were important, but they also had, in addition to physical benefits, they had internal benefits as well, right? So really getting a nice twist, so you can kind of rinse out your internal organs, right? Opening your chest, pulling back your shoulders, really focusing on your posture. Your voice, lion's breath, right, helps you, really cultivate your voice. So again, this is the journey is infinite, right? So you're always learning something in this process. But when I think about the various practices, I think it's important to know those, but also kind of understand the origin and the history behind it as well.
Both of you spoke about running, which is, something that a lot of people attempt to jump into for some kind of physical activity, some kind of mindfulness, stress relief. Definitely it has that. Cardio has elements, benefits physically and mentally. But one of the things about running that I figured out, and that's a whole nother virtual discussion about my running journey. But one of the things I figured out about running very quickly is that sometimes people can push you into trying to do the most quickly, right? And I found on my personal journey, I needed to just start at like here, right? So if I was at 0, and I tried to do this 5K, so let's just say I tried to do 6, and then I very quickly, let me get back to 2, and let me build on up and things of that nature. But what that also means for people externally that might be at 0 or less than 0 that are looking at you, there are several times when somebody would ask me, hey, man, you still running those marathons? And unlike David just referenced, I am not a marathon runner. I was not running marathons ever, not even halfway running marathons. I was running 5Ks, and for everybody that was encouraging me to run 10Ks, I just rebuked them and told them, let me stay in my lane for the time being. Point being, though, with yoga, how do you get somebody slowly into this, right? Because even the creative team, right? The creative team sent back anytime we're doing, promotion and creative. I got this beautiful picture from Dominique. I got these awesome pictures from David. One of them even included family. But I've seen other pictures that David have out there in the world. And I was like, no, I want that one, right? So I had to go back to Dominique and get a pose. And now we got like two amazing poses, like you all are just flexing, right? But the thing about that, right? If I show a man a picture of David doing what he is on that promotion, like standing at an 80-degree angle, some people like running might be like, nah, I'm good, right? Like that's a marathon, right? So how do we ease them in? How do we ease them into that, David? How do we? I know I can't go from zero to that immediately. How do we ease them, David, into this journey?
Yeah, it is the right question, and I always think about what type of impression those postures will make on people when they go out, because it didn't start like that back in 2005, right?
Right.
It's definitely taken some time, investment, dedication. It's been a process. I tell people I am breathing as if I'm talking to you right now in that posture, and that is exactly the way it's supposed to be. So it should be very, very natural, not forced at all.
Wow.
What I would guide people to do is to go at their pace, just like the 5K first, and I'm not ready to do a 10K yet. I'm going to master this 5K, and then I'm going to move on to the next. And that's, starting with the class. Maybe it's not a hot class. Maybe it's at the YMCA. Maybe it's in the park. The other thing I'd say is, get a friend to come with you, right? I've found you'd be surprised how many families practice together, how many sisters and mother-daughters, father-daughters, friends, hey, we're going to do this on Sunday and then go to brunch. So I do think that there's power in community. The other thing I'd say is people is just be light on yourselves, right? I mean, this isn't rocket science. There is not an achievement to be had here at all. There's no gold medal at the end of this, which is another reason I stopped racing, because I felt like I was being too competitive, and my body was suffering as a result of it. But with yoga, there is no end game, right? Every day is going to be different. Sometimes you're going to feel on it, and sometimes you're not going to feel on it, right? And you just go to the next day. So it's definitely a process, and that would be my guidance: is start slow, bring a friend, be light on yourself, and enjoy the process. Just think about the things that are starting to happen in your body, right? How you think about things, not being so easily provoked, right? There's just so many small things that people don't notice, because there is this what I would call obsession with trying to change the way your body looks, and you're perfect the way you are already, and so if you lose a couple pounds, great, right? For me, it was different, because I wanted my blood pressure to go down. I wanted the cholesterol to go down, right? So there were some things but those things are in me. They're not outside of me. I can build my muscle any day, but it didn't matter, as I found out when I was 30. It doesn't matter how big your muscles are. If your blood's not flowing the right way, you're a walking heart attack, right? So, it was important for me to really focus in on what being healthy truly meant. And that's going to mean something different for me and everyone else. So people should take note of that, and what's their why behind why they're doing this as well.
What'd you say, Dominique?
I completely agree 100%. And one thing that I also invite people to do is just to focus on yourself. Like a lot of times in classes, we may look to other people, especially when we're new. We may look to other people and be like, oh, well, I want to do that pose. Let me try to do that. And you're like, oh, wait, I think I pulled a muscle. Well, I shouldn't have done that, So like you said, just, take your time, be gentle with yourself. Like, your body today is not going to be the same body tomorrow, and it's not going to be the same body the next day. You may be able to do a whole handstand for 10 seconds one day, and then the next day you just need to lay there on the mat for an hour and you can't even move your body, you know, and that is perfectly okay. Like, that is part of the practice, and part of the practice is knowing that, recognizing that, and realizing that, and not judging yourself for that. You know, being like, that is true, being true to who you are, being authentic with that. So, you know, don't compare yourself. Don't compare your journey with someone else's. Like, we're all different for a reason, you know. And so you can, you know, have goals for yourself, you know, like you, whether they be the health benefits, things like that, and you can work towards that. But remember, like, number one, be gentle with yourself. You know, yoga is not just about getting to one place or getting to one posture and things like that. It's so much more than that. It's really about, you know, still finding stillness in your mind and stuff like that, and getting rid of those thoughts and those negative thoughts and all of these goal-oriented things that we have. Is just recognizing and accepting things as they are, as they come, and that's it. So yeah.
That sounds very approachable, which is good, right? I don't know if people know that. I love this discussion also about, like, you don't have to be everything in one day or on that day, even along your journey. I found that about running, and I told you all about 4 experiences. I definitely look to get back to that, especially, David, you referenced specifically blood pressure. I didn't know that. I guess it makes sense with, you know, trying to be, you know, have more mindfulness and controlled breathing and other things. But if it can affect blood pressure, I am even more game to that. But I love the discussion that both of you all touched on, the points related to, you know, that some days you're just not on it. Some days you just don't have it. I have found that even mentally helping my running, and I make the joke to people, but it's really not a joke for a lot of people. I said, you know, the thing about running that I found out that I conquered mentally is that I wasn't going to die, right? And a lot of people, they need to understand that, right? If I say I'm going out and running 3 miles and I've never run at all, 3 miles is like, yo, I'm not doing that. That sounds like torture. But I know one day, the first time I ever got 6 miles, I was in New Orleans. And when I started that run, I was like, it's not happening today, right? Like I don't have it today, right? And as I kept going, and one of the things I love about outside, and I talked about at Yoga in the Courtyard, one of the things I love about outside for me, right? And as you all said, you got to find out what works for you, right? It's helpful. The treadmill doesn't work for me. It's just, you know, for me, I'm just there. It's mindless for me, and it doesn't work for me. But outside, I can see something. If I could just get to that pole, if I could just pass that building, right? And again, while it didn't start off feeling great, or I didn't feel like I had it that day, eventually I just got another win, and I ran my 6, and it felt good. But it's great to know that going into yoga, that one day I could be feeling amazing and another day I'm just off, and that's okay.
Yeah, there is a heavy emphasis in yoga around staying present. There's a tendency to either look back or look forward. And the way I think about it, Jon and Dominique, is when you think about depression, it is an overemphasis on things that have happened in the past, meaning it's done, but you're still reliving it. And when you think about anxiety or being anxious, it is an overemphasis of things that have not yet happened, but is causing you some type of physical stress. And the difference, the issue is that the body doesn't know the difference, right? So the body doesn't know whether it's happened in the past or happened in the future. It just knows you're thinking about it so much that it's causing you to be sick. It's giving you a headache. You can't digest your food. You may start to drink too much because of it, or smoke too much because of it. But the issue is it's not the present moment. So there's a heavy emphasis on staying present And that's why we don't get into doing a handstand yesterday versus doing a handstand. It doesn't matter because you're here, right? And this is the only thing we got in our control right now is the present moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, Dominique, let me ask you a question. This is, hey, this is real talk, right? That's what we're doing here. One of the things about Black Men's Health, in our vision, mission, we speak to, language about this is not. And David, if you never heard this, I'm so grateful to have you on to be speaking about other outlets for men. But we speak about one, it can't taste like medicine, right? Constantly the things that we introduce in Black Men's Health, if it tastes like medicine, men won't, latch onto it. So finding some creative ways to give men some opportunities to create balance in their life. But the other thing is, this is so serious, right? And I think the rest of the world had an opportunity to wake up recently and see how serious it is for people of color, specifically Black men. But, this is not an arm around the shoulder, right? This is not like, come on, Dave. This is more like a poke in the chest, right? How serious, how serious it is. So with all that, real talk is important. So David speaks about, saying being present, right? It is not lost on anybody that I could walk into a yoga class and be distracted, Dominique, right? I'm in this class. There's a lot of yoga pants going on.
Yeah.
How are brothers needing to stay focused? Hey, I'm trying to stay focused even when I'm running and Letitia's leading me. I'm all right falling back. People call me and say, John, I see you lagging behind. I'm okay with lagging behind, right? This is a good view. This is a good view ahead right here. I'm appreciative of her beautiful fineness up ahead. So how are brothers to stay focused in that moment and present in that moment when there's a lot of distractions around? And maybe that's part of the discipline in all of this.
Yeah, it's definitely part of the practice. And I'd say, if you're in a large class, go to the front. That way you're not looking at everybody when you come up. You see, maybe you're in the front middle, maybe you're in the front corner, and you can only see yourself. Go somewhere wherever you need to be in order to go back into yourself. Maybe take a minute to close your eyes and feel. Don't look around, just feel where you are and listen to what the instructor is saying. And listen to what they're talking about. You may even be able to do yoga with your eyes closed the whole time. Now, as a beginner, you can, even as a beginner, you really can do that, So, challenge yourself, and remind yourself why you're there, why you're on your mat that day, and then just bring yourself back into it. And remember to focus on that present moment. Focus on the right here, right now, and yourself, and your inner self.
Yeah, I love that. And I can tell you that even as a male instructor, I get it distracted too. So it's human. Mm-hmm. I do think as you're beginning your practice, your breath is so important in helping you remove distractions. If you are focusing on your breath at a point, I do get to a point where I don't see people around me. I do feel like I'm the only person in the room, and I could be around 80, 100 people. So I think your breath is important. In the beginning of a vinyasa class, we typically start off in child's pose. And child's pose is an opportunity. It's an integrative posture, but it allows us to begin to really hone in and focus on our breath. To Dominique's point, focus on our why while we're in the room, while we're on our mat that day. But it's also symbolic of how we should approach our practice, which is like children, being playful, being curious, and being open. And, episodically you will get distracted, but when you hone back in on your breath, right, you zone out and you'll begin to partake in the class as if you were there alone. So it does happen. I tell people, don't fight it. Just really go back to your breath. It happens with men. It happens with women. Everybody's coming in there with a bag of stuff, right? And you have to let them process that stuff the way they process it without causing harm or injury to anyone else, of course. but everyone's processing differently. And the key element in all of that is, just focus on your breath. And when you focus on your breath, then you're able to focus on the posture. You're focusing on the posture. You start to focus more about what you're doing versus what's happening around you.
Exactly. And you're going to even get distracted, not even just by people around you, but just by your thoughts. Like, oh, I need to go to the grocery store later. What do I need to get? Oh, or even thinking about something that just happened before you walked into class. Like, you're going to get distracted, but then you notice, oh wait, I'm in my head again. Okay, inhale, exhale, and then just remind yourself. Again, just bring yourself back there. Mm-hmm.
You all, in your write-ups, both of you spoke about or used the terminology, and both of you have said it several times today, the mat, right? When David is not on the mat, when Dominique is not on the mat, and you all referenced the mat. Tell me a little bit about the significance of the mat, and not only that, when you are off the mat, and David has already spoke about it. You just referenced it, Dominique, in the sense of having the opportunity to take some of these things you might learn in the moment while practicing and be able to use it outside of that class, training, etc.
Yeah, well, I mean, sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
So for myself, like the mat is like my sacred space. And it can literally be physically my mat, so I know like while I'm here, I'm doing yoga. This is like my intention for my practice today. This is the time for myself. That's what I'm doing. But I may not always literally have my mat with me. So if I'm at work, like when we were going to work, I might just be like, I'm just going to sit here for a minute and this is my mat, right? Wherever I am. It might be in my car, wherever that sacred space is where I'm going to go in and just take time for myself and maybe do some breaths or maybe do some movement. Like that is where I am. And that peace that I have, a lot of times, like doing yoga for me brings me clarity. It brings me peace. And so I can bring that outside to, okay, if someone comes at me stressed out, I can bring them peace and calmness just from my approach. Because just remembering like, oh, I don't need to think about the future or the past, and I can remind someone else about that as well. Just bringing that thought, bringing the yoga philosophy out into the world, for other people as well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that. I love that, Dominique. When I think about the mat as well as what she mentioned, it's a bit of a laboratory for me, right? So if you think about going into a lab and you're mixing potions and sometimes stuff blows up, right? But the mat is, in addition to being sacred, it's also a kind of a judgment-free zone, right? And it's an opportunity for me to step on it and symbolically sweep anything that's not going to help me. My mat is that place. It's my space where none of that garbage is coming onto my space. So there's no judgment. There's no judgment by others. There's no judgment by myself, which typically ends up being my biggest critic. But it's also just an opportunity to be so playful and explore different things and try new things and laugh and cry. It's that space, right, that you can really do whatever you want and not feel like judged for it. So it's definitely sacred, but it's also a bit of a laboratory, so you can play around with some stuff that maybe isn't working or is working for you.
So a lot of brothers hear this, they want to get involved. What are the first steps, David? What do you tell them? First steps, kind of, And one of the things before you answer that, I love even when Dominique was referencing, like, your mat can be wherever you are, right, in the car or something of that nature. I love the fact that you can, jump into it for your personal, centering and things of that nature wherever you are, which is important, right? I mean, sometimes we talk about things for if you're trying to cycle, cycling and something of that nature, you physically need a bike, right? If you want to swim, you got to find a pool if you don't have access to a pool. Things of that nature, running, even that can turn into a whole thing about shoes and if you run on certain surfaces and on and on and on. So, right. I mean, obviously you need a mat, but what else do you need, David? And how do you tell them to go from, okay, I'm interested to start?
Yeah, so there's this is a multi-pronged answer, by the way, because I don't think that there's a, specific way to do it. Naturally, you can go to a studio. Um, it might be a little more challenging these days given the pandemic because they've kind of limited class sizes, but you can go to a studio and get more information. Read up on it like anything. Google, Bing, just figure out first time beginning yoga. What do I need? And it'll lay it out for you. If you prefer to practice at home, especially during this pandemic, I'd say just YouTube it. And there are a lot of beginning 5-minute, 10-minute intro to yoga types of courses that you can look up. Retreats are a really good way. I was looking at Dominique's website, and I know that they have a retreat coming up in October. I think it's the 23rd, right, in Arizona. But doing something along those lines and going to a retreat, I think it's a safe way. It's a small community that you can have. You can bring a friend or you can go solo from what I saw. And they have a lot of different activities beyond yoga that'll expose you to it. Hiking, therapeutic massage, really, really good food, farm to table. So all of those things, when you talk about a diet, it's not just going in and doing a posture. What yoga is going to do is open you up to so many different facets of your life where you may be lacking. Right. So your diet is going to consist of not just physical, but it's going to consist of the people and the energy that you associate with. It's going to consist of what you consume on a day in, day out basis. And that's really what yoga is trying to do, is this holistic, comprehensive experience that we're trying to really help you tap into. So, you can go to a studio, you can YouTube, you can try out a retreat. Dominique has one coming up. And just explore those different aspects. And I think that'll get you what you're looking for, at least get you on the path.
Yeah,
what do you say, Dominique?
Thank you so much, David, for that plug. I really appreciate that.
Plug away.
We are having Wellbeing Wellness Retreat in October in Arizona, so please come to that. Like he said, we're having lots of different things from yoga, the physical practice, to meditation, to also massage therapy and everything like that. And yoga, I agree wholeheartedly with everything that he said. You can start with YouTube, even on all types of social media, a lot of Facebook pages. There's a lot of Facebook lives, especially with the pandemic. A lot of things are more accessible, via the internet and stuff, with classes. Some studios are doing online classes. Sometimes they have like free trials and stuff that you can try out. You can do YouTube, you can do on people's Instagram live pages as well. I found a studio in Minneapolis called 612 Jungle on Instagram, and I love their classes. So now I know if I ever physically visit there, I know a studio I can go to. So, you can just learn from so many different people. And then you can also, even like YouTube has yoga for kids. Like you can do it as a family, as a group. Like you said, you can bring your friends. So different things. You can even just go outside. You can, sometimes even in people's neighborhoods. I know for my neighborhood, like one person, we have like a big Facebook group, and someone posted, I usually teach yoga and I'm going to teach in the grass on Saturday morning. So just try out your own community, like locally. People just maybe randomly in a park, or on a basketball court and stuff. So people are teaching everywhere and getting really creative with things, especially nowadays. So there's so many different ways where you can start. I know people that have done yoga just from a home practice from YouTube for years before they step foot in a studio. So you don't necessarily have to be in a studio. I know for myself personally, I love to be around people, so I love the studio feel. But it's all about you and what you want, what you need. So try it all, try everything.
I think I'm gonna make sure I get on Google and search up some terms and get on YouTube and see some things. To your point about community, I know I've been in my scenarios before, in those 4 scenarios I've talked about, where the instructor might have said something and everybody was doing something I had no idea what they were talking about. So that could be a little intimidating. So as instructors, you all be very gentle with your audience and your students, because some of us are lacking knowledge of what to do next.
Right.
Yeah. It is definitely evolving.
Well,
I mean, with the pandemic, we are kind of limited in terms of how we can engage with students. We used to be able to, adjust, right? Students, if they're in a I'm not saying they're doing the posture incorrectly, but their body is not in a way in a shape wise that's going to get them the optimal benefit of being in that posture. So we adjust to make sure they're getting that optimal benefit. And now we have to do a lot more cueing, right, to get them versus touching. So that's changing, but it still doesn't change the intent. We're still there to help out. The other thing I'd say is that when you hear instructors say something, they're speaking Sanskrit, which is a age-old native Indian language, and you typically learn that during your 200-hour certification as well. Most instructors will follow up Sanskrit with the English version just because they understand everyone doesn't speak it. But you can always look around to see what folks are doing and follow along. So there's a lot of ways for beginners to come in, and everyone has been there, right? No one kind of came out and just started practicing yoga or doing handstands. Everyone had to go to that first class, that beginning class, right?
Yeah.
Any tips you all have for beginners in the sense of just making sure you are being as safe and cautious as possible? Maybe cautious is not the word, but just being safe to make sure you're not hurting yourself.
My number one thing would be listen to your body. Your body is tells you everything that you need to know, and then also just make sure that you're strong in your foundation. So if your foundation is like your feet, be strong and stable in that before you try to do anything else. Because if you're trying to do like the pose I am in my picture, like dancer pose, and one leg is up, but your leg may wobble a little bit, but if your knee is all turned in and your ankle's one way, then that can really be dangerous in the long run. So you may not feel it right away, but it can be dangerous in the long run. So just make sure that your foundation is stable before you try to maybe do like a balancing posture or even like on handstands and things like that. Make sure that you're strong in that. But number one, listen to your body, because it'll tell you what you need to know.
Yeah,
I don't want to leave Dominique out of that discussion. I talked about Dave's 80-degree angle earlier and flexing, but Dominique was flexing in her pictures also. Some of the pictures are all locked up. I'm not there. And the other one, she's on a mountaintop somewhere, with her leg backwards. And I mean, yeah. So you were flexing also, ma'am. That could be a little intimidating also. So it's good to hear you don't have to be there on day 2. Go ahead, David.
No, there are only 2 things I'd offer in addition to Dominique's comments. One would be to focus on your breath. Because again, you could be tired or not feel like you can do a posture, and it's perfectly fine to stand still and breathe or sit down and breathe. That's a big piece of knowing your body as well and knowing where you are. And then the other thing, because I do instruct primarily in a hot room, it's hydration. And just making sure your body has enough water and fluids that's going to be able to help you, because your body will start to sweat and release some of the toxins that you've been building up, toxins from things that you eat, drink, and even think.
Yeah, so I got to get my mind right before connecting with either one of you. I already told you, 1, I had socks on. 2, I'm sleepy. And y'all about to put me in a hot room, so that's going to be that could be challenging at best. So I'll make sure I get my stamina up before I do that. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. I appreciate you all spending some time with us and sharing. I will definitely make sure that I get back into this. I'm sure I'll be texting you offline to give me some advisement so I don't do myself wrong. But I definitely look forward to getting back into the journey. So appreciate you all's time. Thank you so much for being here. Tell us where we can find you, Dominique, and David also. If somebody's looking for you specifically, or where you practice, or where you are in the world, make sure that people are aware, Dominique.
Yeah, so right now I am taking a break from social media just for the month of August, but on social media you can find me at Love04 Yoga. and also my Facebook, Dominique Love Man. And I also teach at Blue Lotus Yoga Studio in Annapolis. So I'm there on the schedule regularly. You can email me at thompsondominique04@gmail.com. So just anywhere, and also wellbeingwellnessco.org is our website for the retreat and everything. So I am there, and I do want to just mention I do see a quick question for the under the Q&A for the weightlifter looking to become more flexible. How often would you suggest trying to practice, and is there a certain type of yoga to try? My answer to that is, just try as often as you can. If you are looking for specific goals with weightlifting, I would also suggest getting a specific yoga teacher that could really work one-on-one with you in your individual goals. I do know of several yoga teachers that work with athletes and weightlifters and things like that. So you can always reach out to me for their specific information, but that's something that I would suggest and just get started. So, yes, thank you. And thank you
Yeah.
so much for having me. I really appreciate being here today. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd say for the weightlifter also, to Dominique's point, is just to get out and definitely practice. What you'll find in yoga, there are certain types of yoga where they use lighter weights. That's called sculpt yoga. So but the objective is really not to get you bigger, but to start resistance. What you'll find with yoga is they focus a lot more on body weight. And it's the belief that creates more lean muscle, right? So trying to be more lean, but for bodybuilders, you'll focus more on, of course, lifting your weight versus lifting weights. But it's definitely a great, I think, complement to weightlifting. In terms of me, where you can find me, I'm primarily on Facebook. So looking at Zen Power. I teach at Get Zen Hot Yoga, which is in Bellevue, Washington. And I've been teaching there for the past 5 years. I do a lot of charity events, yoga charity events, where we donate those proceeds to homeless shelters, whether it's here in Seattle, it's Mary's Place that works with women and children who uh, are homeless or need certain resources. So some teaching, a lot of charity events. I kind of think of my life in three phases. You spend a third of your life trying to figure out what you do, what you want to do, a third of it trying to figure out how you can continue to cultivate that craft. And then the latter third is giving it away. And I'm in between the second and the third, right? So still learning,
I
still
love it.
cultivating, but also giving away what I know as well. So zenpower at yahoo.com is how you can email me. I'm happy to answer any types of questions you may have relative to your practice.
I love David and Dominic again. Thank you for your time, David. I'm constantly working on 1 and 2, and I look forward to continuing to and striving to be at 3. We do what we can in small pieces, but it'd be great to be there full time. You hear me?
Yeah.
So, thank you all, man. God bless you all. Stay safe. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Respect.